everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode. So we are going to be talking about the sweet things in life, and hopefully this is a topic that all of you enjoy. I know it's one that Mirella and I enjoy. If you want to say hello in the chat, that would be great. We can get started. So, my name is Lorene Sorrow, and I'm a registered holistic nutritionist. I'm also a gut health specialist. We will be talking about some of these elements that we are working with regard to gut health and what role that they play. So first of all, I would like to introduce my colleague tonight. It's Mirella Kojaka, and she's also a registered holistic nutritionist. So Mirella, tell them a little bit about yourself, what you do, how you sort of got into all of this.
Okay, so where do I start with? Where I was born in a very nice city with a long history, or not that far away?
I wouldn't start quite that far back, but...
Okay, so I've been raised in a traditional family where we used to meet, gather around the table at dinner time and catch up and eat. All the meals were prepared from scratch with fresh and quality ingredients. I love real food because that's what I was used with. I learned to recognize the taste of a garden tomato or a cucumber, or the smell of freshly cut parsley, dill, or whatever other herbs my mom was using in her dishes, and got excited by the aroma of freshly picked fruits from my father's garden. All of this combined with the fresh salty breeze from my hometown and a happy family life with lots of love, family gatherings, parties and vacations. It's what makes for me life, real life, pure happiness and nourishment for the body, the mind, and the soul. My passion for living healthy was instilled early on by my mother. She would rather choose a natural remedy to drugs in case of an indigestion, cold, or a rash. And she would make a tea or an herbal ointment or just take a bath, a hot tub. My chemical engineer background and ability to see the big picture and identify the reasons some of the things are not working as they should had served me well as a nutritionist. My approach is to look for the root cause of disease and symptoms like bloating, constipation, acid reflux, brain fog, weight loss, weight gain, and so on.
Yes, and we know all about brain fog, don't we, Mirella?
Yeah, at some age you kind of learn these things. And I was especially interested in hormonal imbalances, digestion, and gut health.
Yes.
I feel my best when I show people how to benefit from the food they eat and to restore their health and maintain it, or just to raise it to the next level. When I'm not working, I love spending time with friends outside, traveling, gardening, or in the kitchen, coming up with healthier versions of traditional recipes like we will both do tonight.
Well, thank you. I just want to give a shout out to Nydia from Clearwater, Florida. Cool, eh? As well as many of our regulars, Pamela and Isabel and your friend Isabel, Magda and Melody and Helen, Pamela, I think I said Pamela. Anyway, so yeah, again, I think a lot of people have a similar journey. I was very fortunate that when I was growing up, my father, my mother too, she was very big into vegetables and fruits. She had grown up on a farm, which was located at the north end of Toronto at Bayview and Eglinton, if you can picture that. If you know Toronto at all, that is now a very integral part of the city. It's Melanie and Carol. But one of the reasons we wanted to have this conversation is because both Morella and I like things that are sweet. And mine stems back from, as long as I can remember, my mother didn't feed us a lot of sugar. We would have it on special occasions. And it's really how I learned to bake. So in order to have anything that was between special occasions, my siblings and I, we had to bake it ourselves. And that's how I learned to bake. My mother did teach me. And my father also baked as well. He taught me some things as well. But I used to crave sugar morning, noon, and night. Like if we went out for dinner, I would plan dessert first and then my meal around it. And I was always thinking about something sweet to eat. And when I started baking for a living, I realized it wasn't so much the eating that I wanted, it was the baking that I wanted. Because as soon as I started baking all the time, I didn't have the big desire to eat it, but I still got off on the baking of it. So I think this is an important concept that we need to talk about, because there's more to flavor and eating than just taste. There is touch, there is smell, there is the visual appearance. And to this day, I get off on baking something really well, knowing it, when I look at it coming out of the oven, how wonderful it is. Plus, I do like the sweet taste. And I don't like it by itself. I like to mix it with sour and other flavors, because this is what gives it the depth that I'm looking for. I also do not like white sugar because it doesn't have much taste. It just tastes sweet. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is, you know, what exactly should we be eating and what value does it have? So we're going to go over some of the sweet things with regard to what you can use first, and then we'll demonstrate our recipes here. And so what I'd like to start with is, I'm hoping you can see this. I had to go borrow this from my brother because I don't have any white sugar in my house. I'll put it on my hand so you can see it. So wait, let me get we're gonna go in order of color, I think, Morella. We'll start with the white and work backwards. All right, so when we talk about sugar, we're talking about what's made from sugar cane. However, and I'm putting these on my hands so you can see it. I'm hoping you can see that, the difference in the color between, this is evaporated cane juice, or what's known as organic sugar. And this is white sugar that you know well and probably have consumed a lot over the course of things, depending on where you live and what you do. All right, so these are the two we're talking about. If you wanted a healthier option that behaves just like white sugar, this is the one you would choose. But if you want to know, see, that's what you do with it when you don't want to touch it anymore. And you just throw it away. It starts with sugar cane, and you can buy a product called Sucanat, which I'm hoping you can see, is dark brown. So this is literally, they took the sugar cane and juiced it, then they crystallized it, and it forms little balls. It's a really nice sugar, and it has lots of flavor because it's got a very strong sort of molasses taste to it, because it's got all the phytonutrients, vitamins, and minerals that sugar cane would have. And this is very good for you. And what they do is they just create this. It doesn't perform quite as nicely because these little balls don't dissolve that well. They do well in a muffin or a cake, but not so much in a cookie that's crunchy. So what happens is they take Sucanat, or the sugar cane that's been juiced, And then when they're processing it, they put it into a machine and it starts spinning around so that they can get the molasses out. And when they stop it at a certain point, so they take out some of the nutrients, but then you end up with brown sugar, okay? So this is 100% everything except the fiber that the sugar cane has. This is the next step. If you had yellow sugar, it would be a little further step, then the evaporated cane juice, and then the white sugar. So along that process, you are losing nutrients, but all of the ones except for white sugar are low glycemic. So even the evaporated cane juice, and I've seen anywhere from 48 to 54 on the glycemic index. And we could talk about the glycemic index not being the be all and the end all of everything, but it's very important that people understand that really when you're talking about a food like this, the only knock against it that most people will say there is its ability or not to raise blood sugar. So I think that's very important for this conversation because it's critical to what we're trying to do. So we want ingredients that have nutrients in them, vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients in this case, because these are plants, right? And we want to make sure that they don't, in general, spike blood sugar. First of all, we have to also talk about the amount. So most of the time when you're consuming any of these things, you're not even consuming enough to spike up blood sugar unless you're drinking the sugar. Pop's a really good example, or you're eating candy or something that is like straight, pure sugar. But most of the time, if you're putting, a teaspoon here, or you're making some cookies or something like that, the amount you actually get is very low, and it's already low glycemic. The nutrients that are in them are amazing. A lot of them have prebiotic properties, which of course are going to be good for the gut. And I even know of a study on white sugar where they fed it to healthy people and it actually helped their good gut bacteria. So in terms of white sugar, part of the problem is going to be what the condition of the person is. And this is true for a lot of foods. All right, so the other sweetener I have, and then Morella's going to talk about the one she's going to talk about, I have coconut sugar here. Coconut sugar is, they tap the coconut leaves or the palm leaves of the palm tree. So that's coconut sugar. It's also very dark. It's 85% sucrose. So I think you can see that on my hand there. Sucrose is, or sugarcane is 100% sucrose. This is 85% sucrose. So it performs very much like sugar too, has a nice caramely taste to it. It's very good. And it's related to palm sugar. Palm sugar is where they tap the palm tree itself, similar to the way they make maple syrup, and then make it just very similar to the process of making maple syrup, but they turn it into a crystal. So those are also low glycemic. They're even lower glycemic than, say, sucanat or evaporated cane juice. And then two other sweeteners we all seem to work with are honey and maple syrup. So Marilla, if you want to talk about those, please go ahead.
Sure. So we got into the brown color, amber color area now. And I'm gonna start with my favorite, honey. Honey's properties and sweetness makes it a perfect replacement for sugar. And it has a lower glycemic index than sugar. It ranges though, depending on the type of honey. It ranges between 45 and 58 or even 60, but still lower than sugar. Honey, so it is high in sugar. It's 87% fructose, 81% glucose, and some other sugars. And then it comes with bee pollen, bee propolis, enzymes, probiotics. It has, Lorraine, correct me if I'm wrong, about 10 strains of friendly bacteria or probiotics.
That is correct. There are 6 lactobacillus strains and 4 bifidus, which brings us to the first question for the audience with regard to honey. And you can answer this while Mirella continues to talk about honey. Does anybody know what a summer bee is? So if you can type in the chat what a summer bee is. And so Mirella, you may continue your honey conversation.
My favorite conversation, honey has vitamins and minerals as well, and antioxidants, flavonoids, and phenols. And it has been researched a lot. It is a very well-known antibacterial, effective against E. coli, Salmonella, Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA, and it displays inhibitory properties against H. pylori. It is an antimicrobial. It has a pH of 4. It is acidic, and which combined with the low moisture makes it a hostile environment for growth of bacteria and other harmful organisms. And it is anti-inflammatory, and it can be applied topically. Again, it has been researched a lot, and it heals wounds. Manuka honey is the honey which which got most attention in the past years, but non-commercial honey produced locally also showed antimicrobial properties. In the US, they can add fructose or glucose to honey and still label it as honey, whereas in Canada that's not allowed. So we benefit from the pure honey. When we buy it, we only have honey without anything else added. I've been lucky all my life to eat a good honey. That's why I love it, maybe. I don't have the ability to distinguish all the aromas, but my father, who produced them, does. So I have this from my father. These are, I don't know if you can see the color, if it's different. This is a little bit lighter, and it's acacia honey. This one, it is multi-flower honey, and it's a bit darker. However, the color and taste of honey depends on the flowers bees visited and harvested the pollen. And here I have some crystallized honey. So it is very concentrated in sugars and it crystallizes. So that's a natural process. Here I have another one crystallized, which I'm being told it's sunflower. That's a little bit darker. I don't know if you can see it properly. My father said, I've asked which one is this, because I know the year he gave it to me. And all of it is from my father, from his beehives. And he said, you can consider it wildflower. That's the trick. Whenever they don't know where the bees went, they say it's a wildflower. So speaking about bees, we have we know it has been a decline in population and the number of species due to intensive use of insecticides and other chemicals on conventional crops. So we should do our best to preserve the species we already have if we still want to have this nice sweetener around. And remember, it is still a sweetener, and as beneficial and tasty as it is, it should be consumed in limited quantities.
Hey, well, I love the different honeys there that you have, Mirella, and I think that's so cool that they come from your father's beehives in Romania. And again, there's a lot of traditions around the world that, you know, we don't necessarily have, but we have lots of local, wherever you live, there's always local beekeepers that you can access. And that was some of the comments that were in the chat here about it's best to use local, unpasteurized, of course. And in answer to the question that I asked, the two closest, one is something that Shannon said was, yes, the pollinators, and then Pamela said bees that make honey naturally, no intervention by man. So we mentioned the 10 strains of good bacteria that are in the honey. Well, that only exists when there's summer bees. And what a summer bee is a bee that is naturally raised. So they hibernate in winter. That is the normal pattern for bees. And what happens in some commercial beehives is they keep the bees awake through the winter by feeding them glucose. So this is going to throw off the glycemic index. Plus, as Mirella mentioned, they can add glucose or fructose to honey. And so this is why if you go and look up the glycemic index, you'll find all different kinds of amounts. But the one that summer bees make, the real bees doing what bees do, pollinating and, you know, just doing their natural thing and then hibernating in the winter, is about 35, which makes it quite low, similar to coconut sweetener. And so just be careful. You probably want to make sure that you read the ingredient label. If it's a local farmer, it's probably summer bees. If you're going to a farmer's market or it's somebody that you know, it's probably summer bees. So that was the answer to that question. Okay, so there was another, I'll get to your question about diabetics later, Linda. And she's saying she went to her first aviator and she thought they were amazing little bees and she bought chocolate honey. Oh my goodness. All right. So tell us about maple syrup, Mirella.
Yeah, I just remember someone you said you mentioned commented about unpasteurized honey, and I actually recently discovered what's the difference between raw and unpasteurized, because I somehow thought they're the same. So pasteurized, it's heat. It's processed under heat. Impurities are being removed. Raw, it's the honey, the real honey, as it has been collected from the beehives. And unpasteurized, it is still processed a little bit to lower temperatures, but they do filter it a little bit. So it keeps some of the benefits, but not all of them. It's in between, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next one, maple. I have some maple syrup, which I didn't consider necessary. We are in Canada, yeah, to show. So the idea with maple syrup is the darker the better.
Yes.
So everyone knows it's made from the sap of the sugar maple trees. And it has a glycemic index lower than the one sugar has, so it spikes less.
It's 54, so again, it just falls under the low glycemic.
Right.
Low glycemic, technically, yes.
That's just for reference, because we have some comments about the glycemic index. But continuing with maple syrup, it is 2/3 sucrose, same as table sugar. It comes with some vitamins and minerals, most important being manganese and zinc. Just to give you a reference, 1/3 cup of maple syrup gives 165 RDI manganese and 28% of the zinc necessary, daily intake of zinc. What I discovered about the maple syrup, and I didn't know that, it also has some other compounds which form during the boiling process when it is, so those compounds are not present in sap, they develop during the boiling process, and one of them is called Quebec from the name of province of Quebec. Again, same like for honey, we need to remember maple syrup is a sweetener and limit its consumption or totally eliminate it in case of weight loss. Where do we go? To some white stuff or no?
Sorry.
So we discussed the brown amber colors. I can talk about sugar alcohols now, or
before you move on from maple syrup, Pamela has a comment that she used to go sugaring with her father when she was a kid growing up in Quebec, and she was saw the huge vats of sap, and she got to be the taste tester. Again, I don't know how much in today's world kids get these opportunities to go see some of these processes that, they still exist. They're still making maple syrup. And then the other thing is that maple syrup is prebiotic, so it helps to feed good bacteria. So there's another reason. And it performs very much like sugar in baking as well. That's your phone.
Sorry.
So Marella, okay, so that takes us to what is probably the next thing people might think of as healthy sugars, which are the sugar alcohols. So Marella, you want to talk about that?
Which doesn't have anything in common with the alcohol. It's just in their name. They are they naturally occur in fruits and vegetables or are man-made. They can be easily identified in the ingredient list because of the ending in OL, like erythritol, mannitol, xylitol. I have xylitol here, and others, maltitol, and so on. They come up with half of the calories that sugar has, so it is a preferred sweetener for weight loss. They also do have a lower glycemic index than sugar, a very low glycemic index, which makes it good for diabetes, especially two of them, erythritol and mannitol. They have glycemic index 0. They do not modify the blood sugar. They don't raise the blood sugar. So that's especially important for diabetics. There are also prebiotics, and what they call an advantage is that they taste like sugar, but they also come with a disadvantage that they are as processed as sugar is. Here I brought, and also they have another big disadvantage. They cause digestive discomfort, and when eaten in excess, they cause they have a laxative effect because they are not entirely absorbed in the small intestine, and they travel to the large intestine where they produce all the problems, gas, bloating, and diarrhea. However, apparently erythritol is the best of them. It tastes amazing. I read that. I didn't try it. And also it has a low sugar, GI of 0. And it doesn't come with the digestive problems because just small quantities reach the large intestine. So just wanted to show the nice color of xylitol. It's as white as, I don't know if you can see it. So it's like white sugar. It tastes this, and it tastes like white sugar. It looks like white sugar, and in baking can be used 1-to-1.
Yeah, it doesn't perform exactly like sugar. Sugar is the mistake people make in baking is that sugar is just sweetness. It's also moisture. And so that has to be taken into consideration. And the sugar alcohols don't add as much moisture. Therefore, the texture might be not quite the same, but you can fiddle with the recipe. But the big point is what Mirella was saying about it being white. What's the difference between having white sugar with no nutrients or white sugar alcohols with no nutrients? It's the same thing, which kind of brings us to our next topic, which is the ones that are calorie free, which are supposed to be so great, like stevia and monk fruit. And so one of the things I wanted to say, because I have a very strong opinion about this, is that this concept that 0 calories is a good thing. You have sugar receptors throughout your body, especially in your mouth and your GI tract. And what they do, one of the many things they do, is tell the body that energy has arrived. If there are no calories to go with that taste receptor, so if something locks onto the taste receptor, and there's no energy, and this happens with the artificial sweeteners as well, then your body is going to say, well, you told me that energy was coming, where is it? And it will make you crave more. So it's very important that we understand that if you're going to eat anything, calories are a good thing. It's why we eat. It's the only reason we eat. We want the calories and the nutrients to go with the calories. So we want foods with lots of nutrients, and we want them to have calories. Monk fruit. I know you've got the stevia there, Mirella. I've got the monk fruit. The monk fruit isn't as white as the stevia. You can get green stevia. Which one do you have, white or green stevia, Mirella?
Not quite sure because I'm not using it. I bought them all to try, and I have something. I have in. Okay, I have a package.
Well, you can see the monk fruit here. It's not pure white, so that's from the monk fruit. It's mixed with erythritol, and therefore it is has some nutrients in it. But this stuff, I know you all know probably that stevia has an aftertaste. The aftertaste of stevia is nothing compared to this stuff. This is just foul. So it does perform well because it's mixed with the erythritol, but I could taste the aftertaste for like 24 hours after I ate. It didn't matter what I ate. You could still taste this aftertaste. Did you have the stevia?
So I got the white powder. Obviously, I don't have the green one. There you go.
So the white's going to be in the same category as white sugar or white xylitol. We've got a couple of...
and I got some liquid stevia, which I don't like. And I bought one with vanilla.
Yeah, I've had a few that are okay, but the still get an aftertaste. It's not as bad as monk fruit though. We've got a couple of questions here. So Pamela is saying, what is the glycemic load? Is it lower than the glycemic index? So very quickly, the glycemic load, so when they do the glycemic index, they take 50 grams of carbohydrate of whatever the food. So whatever amount of food they need to equal 50 grams of carbohydrate, they put a bunch of people in a room, they feed it to them, and they measure their blood sugar. And then they take an average of it, and that's where they come up with the glycemic index. So it's not really that accurate because some people could be having high glycemic response and low, but by the time you average it out, it comes to, whatever an average comes out to. So that's a problem with it. But usually that 50 grams is way more than anyone would eat in one sitting. So the glycemic load is where they take the glycemic index and then calculate a serving portion, which usually drops the overall sugar response to it. So if you are going to use the glycemic index, look for glycemic load sites and see what the true glycemic load is. And it's supposed to be anything under 25 is considered low glycemic load. So Melody's agreeing with the GI upset, and she heard that xylitol wasn't that good for baking. It's not. Shannon says she likes monk fruit sweeteners. Okay, Shannon. Isabel says a touch of xylitol gets rid of the stevia aftertaste. I have a a better way of getting rid of the stevia aftertaste. Don't eat it. That's a really good way to never have to worry about the aftertaste.
But that's an interesting trick.
Melody's wondering if it's coming from the baking of the monk fruit that's giving it the aftertaste. I don't know. I would put some in my mouth now, but I would be tasting it for the rest of this. Craig says, I didn't find any aftertaste with monk fruit either. Really? Oh my God, I can't get past it. And then what about syrups like yacon or brown rice? So yacon falls into the same category with stevia, monk fruit. It has the 0 calories. Again, if you're trying to bake with it, it's not going to give you that performance of the moisture that the sugar adds. So they're not very good for that. The yacon is kind of mild, I find, from a sweet perspective, but it's not bad. It doesn't have the aftertaste. Brown rice syrup, depends what you mix it with. Sometimes it has a funny kind of taste to it, but it doesn't perform well, but it's not bad. It's good in things where you're, creating sauces or puddings or things like that don't require a lot of baking performance. All right. The inulin in stevia is okay. Yes, that's another important point that Fernanda is making, that inulin, of course, is prebiotic. So stevia does have prebiotic properties. I'm sure monk fruit does as well. What is the score of agave? Well, originally they said it was 15, but I saw something on the weekend that said it was around possibly 10. So I don't really know. I think it depends on whether it's because there's 2 different agaves. One's been a little processed and have some of the nutrients removed from it. And Shannon says monk fruit doesn't. Well, I see, and again, everybody's palate is different. I just find monk fruit disgusting. But if you don't find it has an aftertaste, then that's fine too. But again, watch out for that no calorie thing. Why are you having it? Why is it necessary? Why not have something like honey or maple syrup that delivers some nutrients to you and some calories that your body's looking for? You got to watch out for that. The body doesn't like it when you give them empty calories. Empty food with no calories. It's looking for calories. All right, so Morella, would you like to demonstrate the first recipe and talk about the ingredients that you're using?
Yes, of course. I was tempted to joke that no, because I'm missing something. I discovered I'm missing something, but that's okay. I have replacements. I always have replacements for everything. So I'm going to show you my favorite brownie recipe, which I made it for this purpose, gluten-free and vegan-friendly, and so it is accessible to people with lots of restrictions. I have everything pre-measured here, so we will just mix stuff. It is a 1 bowl recipe. So basically you throw everything in the food processor or blender and mix them there. Here, another favorite sweetener I have, it's apricots, dried apricots. I pre-soak them. I'm not sure if you can see, I'm gonna get closer. How nice and plump they got. And they smell amazing. A little trick, you should soak more than you need so you can eat one. Now, now I'm drooling after this one. So reserve the liquid because we use it as well. Here in the liquid, actually I soaked, I put some psyllium husk and it turned into a nice gel. So I'll put these ones in the blender and turn it into a paste. I want to do this before I add the other ingredients, just to make sure the apricots will become a smooth paste. And then a little bit of noise, a little bit of more noise. Done. I continue with the rest of the liquid ingredients. It's summer. I didn't have to melt the coconut oil. I measured it here. It's already melted at this temperature. So I'm adding it to the mix. And what I was saying is that I discovered I don't have the 2 teaspoons of vanilla I need. I probably have just 1 here. I'm not gonna even measure it. I'll just put it like this. And I have this powdered vanilla that I only tried in some hot chocolate ones. I'm not sure how well it does in cooking, so I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of the powdered vanilla, and I'll let you know how it goes. And done with the liquid ingredients. I prefer to put the salt now, so it dissolves properly in all the liquids. And then I continue with the beans. 1 can beans, a big one. And it goes. And again, I am going to make a little bit of noise before I add the solid ingredients, the flours. Okay, it still is a little bit coarse, but I'm gonna add the flour and it's gonna get smoother. So what's left of the flour? I'm using, okay, I measured this one, that's the buckwheat flour here. And I will need some cacao, a third of a cup of cacao. Let me see it. A little bit of more cacao. It doesn't do any good. So when it goes, and also I will add a little bit of maca, just because I like to improve nutrition of recipes. I have 1 tablespoon in the recipe, and here I have the measurement for a teaspoon, so I'm gonna put 3 of them. And mix again. If I put the cover on the processor, it cannot turn out nice. So I need to help it a little bit now, because all the powders are on top. This cacao smells amazing. Do people used to try your recipes while you are making them? Like, I always taste a little bit, see how it is before I'm getting the final product. Okay, done with the noise, and actually almost done. So this is the base for the brownie. I'll remove the blenders. They are heavy, everything is here. No silicone spatula on this sharp. So that's about it. I'm gonna pour everything in the baking dish that I lined with parchment paper, and then it's gonna go in the oven. So I didn't oil this at all because I like using parchment paper. I could have not used it because this specific baking dish is very baking pan. It's a very thick, so nothing really burns. It's a good one. So this is the brownie. Simple and fast, except the dishwashing after that. But okay, I need to use the other spatula to get it all of the goodness of the blender. Before this, I used Vitamix, which was not a very good idea because it's quite tall and it doesn't mix as well. You need to help it a lot, actually. So I prefer the food processor. Okay. So if you wonder why did I put any of the ingredients, I think it's very clear why I put the apricots, because they are one of my favorites. They taste delicious, but they make a good sugar replacement. Fresh apricots are actually low in sugar, and they say it's low in fat. So of course, it's low in fat, but they are rich in soluble fiber, and they are a prebiotic as well. And they are rich in potassium. I'm just gonna level it here, and it's ready to go in the oven. The oven should be preheated at 350 degrees. All the information is in the recipe. And I don't want to spend more time on this because due to the magic of the internet, we will have it already baked. So this is how it looks like. I made this yesterday, and it's ready to be cut. Okay, so I was saying about apricots, they are rich in potassium, which comes with the benefit of helping in blood pressure management. And also they are, I said about fiber, I think, and they're rich in antioxidants for eye health, specifically beta-carotene and lutein and zeaxanthin. And in terms of sugar, fresh apricots are 11% sugar, and the dried apricots, of course, are more concentrated in everything, and they are 53% sugar. So that's why I use them, and they have an amazing flavor. Then I use the buckwheat flour just because I like it. I also like the rye flour. They have a nice flavor. I am going to top it with chocolate glazed that stayed warm. That's good. And with some walnuts, because you can eat this one, so that's how it looks like. You can eat it as is. It's not too sweet. I don't like too much sweetness. I like the sense the other flavors, but I like some crunchiness. I need to add some texture to my food. And I have walnuts here. So I prepared the glaze. This glaze. This is dark chocolate with a little bit of honey and a little bit of oil, because I wanted to see how it turns. It turned out very well. Traditionally, you would put coconut oil as well, but I thought, you know what? I'm using coconut oil in the recipe, so why not try the olive oil? So it worked well. So I just put a little amount of the glaze, and now I have the roasted walnuts, and drizzle a little bit of more of chocolate, just because I like it. And that's what it is, a little bit of decoration here and there. It's very hot. Usually you would leave this, so that's the final product. You would leave it in the fridge before you cut it, and then when you add the glaze, it will get solid almost instant. But you can put it in the fridge now. So just a little bit of the reasoning why I used maca, because I like hormonal. I'm interested in hormonal imbalances, and maca provides a boost of energy and enhances sexual health. It increases libido for both men and women, and in perimenopausal women, it improves mood and decreases depression and anxiety, as well as hot flashes and night sweats. And in men, it decreases erectile dysfunction. It also has some Alzheimer's related benefits, improving memory. So that's pretty much it. And the beans, of course, they come with all the nutrition, all the proteins. They are 25% proteins, and they contain lots of fiber, both types of fiber, resistant starch and soluble fiber. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mirella. That's lovely, and you're getting lots of comments in the chat about how beautiful it looks, how yummy it looks, and yeah, it's got a lot of nutrients in it. Plus, the beans are really good for the gut. Okay, so I'm going to show you. Oh, and Glenda also made a comment about dates, which is another really good sweetener for. If you like the apricots, I've used that a lot, and it works really, really well, especially in baking. You just have to make it into a paste, similar to what she did with the apricots, and then puree it up. It works very well. Okay, so I'm making a chocolate sauerkraut cake, and I'm starting with delicious butter, and this is gonna be the fastest cake in the history of cakes. So bring the butter in, and then usually the butter is cold. This is a little soft because I wanted to sort of speed it up. It's not that soft. But usually what I do is I put in cold butter and I use the sugar. So if you're using a granulated sweetener, like a coconut sweetener or the evaporated cane juice or the brown sugar or the sucanat or anything that has a friction to it, it'll break up the butter. Otherwise, start with soft butter. And I'm just going to dump that in. And this is my lovely mixer. Now, the key is once there are no flour or butter lumps, you're good to go. And then everything, you just dump it in. So I've got the vanilla, same vanilla that Mirella had. And
no more.
More in it. And you can put in a couple of eggs. And you don't have to be very fancy with this. There's no great technique to it from a baking perspective. The key is to make sure there's no butter lumps or flour lumps. I'm using spelt flour for this particular cake. So I've got a quarter cup of 2224 cocoa, which is the very rich cocoa. You'd need a little more if you were using the 1012, which is more common, or if you were using raw cacao powder, which are not as rich in terms of flavor. So that goes in. The flour goes in. And then you want some baking powder, putting in half a teaspoon. And I'm putting in half a teaspoon of baking soda. And I'm putting in some salt that I moved all the way over here. I'm kicking the cat food dish. That's not part of the technique, but you can always do it if it makes you feel good. All right. And then I'm adding a cup of sauerkraut that I've chopped up. So you have chopped it up nice and fine. And you're probably going, sauerkraut in a chocolate cake? Well, with baking, acids matter. This is an acid. Sauerkraut is an acid. It's also adding moisture. Think carrot cakes, think zucchini. So it's adding moisture and it's adding acid, which is going to help the baking powder and the baking soda give even more lift to it. And I'm just going to mix that. And the only other ingredient I have to add is water, but I'm going to do it last for a very good reason. And the reason I added it last is because I want to make sure there's no flour lumps. So if there's, again, some friction there that breaks up the flour, now I can add the water. And that should do it. We have our lovely dough, batter. And then I've greased an 8x8 a baking pan lined with parchment. I grease it with coconut oil. It's my favorite thing to grease with. I'm just going to dump this in. Spread it. And into the oven it goes. And like magic, it's baked. Woohoo! All done. Okay. Until I'm rushing this. I also am making a glaze. This is a glaze. I've used a thick coconut milk here with some butter, but normally I use whipping cream, but I didn't have any, so I used coconut milk instead. And all you have to do, this is a really fun glaze to make. And I'm just going to take this out of the pan. Around it with an edge, you flip it out, pull off the parchment, you flip it back over. There's our nice cake. And then we just bring this to a boil, and we're going to pour it on the chocolate to turn it into a glaze. This is a really good thing to know how to do because you can use any kind of milk, and you can use almond milk, you can use, I'm using coconut milk, you can use cream, but as the less fat it has in it, the more you have to adjust the chocolate to the liquid. Otherwise, it'll be too runny. If you're using, like, say, almond milk or the coconut milk that comes in the Tetra Pak, which I would recommend. So yeah, so we'll just give that a minute to boil. And while we're waiting for it to boil, I am going to answer Linda's question about for diabetics. So again, it goes back to this glycemic index thing and what spikes up blood sugar. There's a really good book, I've mentioned it to other people in the past, it's called Personalized Nutrition. That is the name of the book. And it's basically a project that's being done where they measure people having different, eating different foods, and they measure their blood sugar after each food on a regular basis. So they're doing this over a period of time. And what they've discovered is that what spikes one person's blood sugar doesn't spike another person's blood sugar. And they're measuring their poop bacteria at the same time. They haven't made any correlations as to what types of bacteria or families of bacteria even might be spiking up somebody's reaction to a given food. But in terms of these sweeteners, if we want to stick with this glycemic index, glycemic load concept, it's going to go on a case-by-case basis. If someone is a diabetic, they automatically have their blood sugar spike up because they're insulin resistant. So they have that going for them. It really doesn't matter what type of carbohydrates they consume, although sticking more to the lower glycemic ones and sort of spreading the carbohydrates over a period of time is probably the easiest thing to do until they improve their insulin resistance. In terms of a type 1, again, they measure their blood sugar. And so it's going to depend how they find they react to certain foods, and they need to just be aware of that. So anything that allows people to sort of get the flavors that they want, the taste that they want without, being too, having to give up too much, especially for diabetics. They don't really like this concept that somehow, they don't get to have any fun. Is really good. So experimenting with different types of sweeteners, which is why we wanted to cover the whole gamut, is probably the way to go. Honey for sure has been studied to be low glycemic, and it's in particularly been studied for diabetics. So that might be something that works for them, but it doesn't mean there aren't diabetics where it isn't going to spike their blood sugar because, like I said, carbohydrates in general, and because they're insulin resistant, spike it. But it's always going to be tied to the amount they consume and balanced out with the other foods that they're eating in a given recipe or a meal. The bean brownie that Morella did probably would not spike someone's blood sugar because beans are very good for blood sugar beyond, not being, they're low glycemic, but they've also been studied to not only balance blood sugar in one meal, but in the meal that follows. So they are a really good blood sugar food. Okay, so this is boiling. I'm just gonna give it a stir and let it boil a little bit more. And so all you have to do is pour this on the chocolate and it will melt the chocolate. And that's all you do to make your glaze. And what I like about this is you can play with this. I'm using a raw chocolate that's really nice and smooth. Not all raw chocolates are. And you just let this sit for a few minutes and it will melt. It's already melting. Just needs to sit there. You can use whatever chocolate you like, but you got to watch the cocoa butter content. It's going to change the texture. So the higher ones, this is a 76 cocoa solid chocolate. So it has more cocoa butter in it versus sugar, whereas a semi-sweet has lower cocoa butter content and more sugar. So it's going to be runnier than the one used with the 76 cocoa solid. So I'm trying to run this or rush this, which I shouldn't do. I should just leave it alone. Yes, I said personalized nutrition. Thank you, Isabel. Somebody was paying attention. So as you can see, these recipes are very easy. This is more traditional, except for the sauerkraut. If I was going to make this and I was dealing with a crowd of people who maybe weren't so into weird things, I might not tell them the sauerkraut was there. They won't be able to taste it. You cannot taste it. It just tastes like chocolate cake. It's moist, it's rich, and you don't really, you might get a bit of the texture of the cabbage, but you don't get the taste of sauerkraut. And what you're adding is a lot of benefit. So we've got prebiotics in the chocolate, which we've not talked about. We have resistant starch in the flour. We have the prebiotic nature of the sugars that we use. And then we have, with the sauerkraut, when cabbage is fermented or any food is fermented, it creates new beneficial metabolites. Even though you're going to lose the bacteria because you're cooking it, you keep those benefits. And there is some research about dead bacteria, which I don't really want to get into because it hasn't been confirmed yet, but they do find that even things like sourdough and cooked heated bacteria still manages to help support our immune system. So lots of really good benefits in these, even though to anybody eating this, it would be a normal dessert. They would think it was a dessert like anything else. All right, so there's our glaze. I could add more liquid to make it runnier, but I don't have to. And then all I have to do, I'm not going to plate this nicely like Mirella did. I was going to put it in a piping bag and pipe on it, but I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to do this. Because you don't have a piping bag. And again, you don't even have to do that. If you like a plain cake, you can just do it as is. You don't have to do anything fancy. And then you just let that set. If you want to add nuts to it like Mirella did, you can do that as well. It's all up to you, but there you go. And that's our chocolate sauerkraut cake. All right. Okay. So everybody wants the book. Good. Read it. I don't read a lot of books, but I found this one fascinating. They have a lot more to learn. And yeah, so that is our presentation for today. Mirella, do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to say about sweeteners as your final thought?
Not necessarily. I mean, what I want to stress out is it is possible to find healthier alternatives to white sugar. That's it. And from all my experience with liking sweet and trying to refrain myself from the sweetness in my life, that doesn't work. So I think the solution is to find a good product which brings you more nutrition and increases the profile of the food you eat. It doesn't matter if it's dessert or anything else, actually.
Well, that's a good point. Think about nutrients. Think about avoiding white. Don't care what it is. Avoid white. The more color it has, the more nutrients it has. That's a range of colors. Don't just think about light and dark. Range of colors. Colors are always good, and you're more likely to have more nutrients as a result. Okay, so I think you guys, Isabel's asked me, there's another one by J.A. Miller. I don't know, I can't remember the name of the author of Personalized Nutrition, but it's usually the one that comes up first when you do the Amazon search. I'll put it onto the page. So these recipes are available. If you go to the link that's in the description, the recipes are available there. And I'll put the link to that book in that page as well, in case you have trouble finding it. It's a really interesting, and when you're hearing about people talk about personalized diets, this is where the research is going right now. It's not about these canned diets like FODMAPs and paleo and keto and all that stuff. People are moving away from that, or at least the research is moving away from that and more onto an individual, what's right for the individual. Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending. Next week, I will be here with Peg McPhedran, and we are going to be talking about the politics of fat and food. So we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, what's been going on and how our opinions about fat have been formed and what that's all about. And then we're going to have some good recipes to demonstrate how to eat different types of fats and what kind of good fats you should be consuming. All right. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And hopefully we will see you next week.
Thank you for all the nice discussion and for the interest. Sugar and chocolate is always a hot topic.
I was going to say, we could have done this just on chocolate, to be perfectly honest. But anyway. All right. Thank you, Marella.
Thank you, Lorraine. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye. All right. We are out.